kids, I have a question for you. What is the only type of contract where the terms keep changing, you never signed the contract, yet it is considered completely binding and inescapable, demands you pay for all costs, and the other party gets to make all the decisions for you? That's right, it's the social contract. It is gaslighting you by saying if you don't leave or die, you are bound to a contract that you never signed. Not only is there nowhere to leave to, but the social contract most people envision when they discuss the social contract is nothing more than a blanket order that you must obey the government because that is the only term that never changes. The terms of this fraudulent conceptual contract are constantly changing and were never signed by either party. That doesn't meet the definition of an enforceable contract. The concept of a social contract is nothing more than a linguistic trick used to justify obvious tyrannical behavior. You don't agree to be taxed? It's okay, because you were born into a social contract. You know who also used such thinking? Medieval lords, masters and slaves, and dictators and their subjects. It doesn't matter where you were born, nobody can be born into a contract. Simply surviving in a society doesn't bind you into a contract, and no contract that is only escapable by death is a valid contract. There must always be remuneration, and that remuneration can't be to not kick someone out of where they were born or not make them a slave. And that is all the concept of a social contract does. It uses the terminology of voluntary contracts and the concept of majority rule to make obeying the state's dictates sound palatable. Even if the majority wants something, your rights should never be violated. That is the nature of rights, to be inviolable. If rights are violated, then the validity of the government violating them is withdrawn. This applies whether the government in question is a monarchy, democracy, oligarchy, or republic. Really, it doesn't matter what form your government takes, so long as individual rights are protected. And the better individual rights are protected, the fewer practical, everyday differences people under those governments will experience between government types. If two hypothetical states, one a democracy and the other a monarchy, do an equivalent job at protecting individual rights, the differences between those two government types to the citizens of those countries will appear indistinguishable. The reason why we've developed a moral aversion to monarchy and for democracy is because we feel like we have a hand in government, and it will be less likely for them to violate individual rights. But remember, the authoritarian nightmares of communism were predicated on the concept of majority rule and popular consent. Dictators are overwhelmingly voted for all the time, and elections are thrown constantly. Believing that a nation is immune to using the trappings of democracy to defend their despotic rulers is the height of naivete. The only difference is the outright dictatorship doesn't pretend to have the moral high ground. The concept of a social contract originated as a way to better protect natural rights, a philosophically justified way to prevent things like assaults as retaliation against perceived crimes, the wrong perpetrator, and vigilantism. You give up small bits of your natural rights so that what is left is better protected from both the government and your fellow man. But like all things government related, the power of government grew and expanded over time. As I discuss in Kleptonomics, the terminology of good things is often corrupted to serve as pseudo-moral justification for something evil. This can be clearly seen in how the language of a social contract has been changed from a theoretical justification for living in society with other people to an actual contract that authoritarians say you signed by being born. That by living in a society at all, you have agreed to the social contract of that society. By this logic, anything legal in said society you agreed to by not escaping that society. That makes every crime legally committed against you by both other people and the government voluntary, because you agreed to the social contract of that country. Remember, the Holocaust was legal, Holodomor was legal, slavery was legal. Almost every major atrocity you can envision was legal at one point in some country. The term social contract is nothing more than a way to lexically twist oppression into voluntary obedience. Anyone who uses this term today has fallen prey to the cancerous idea that existence is optional and that you can go somewhere else if you don't like it where you are. Not only is that not possible, you have a right to exist where you are born without having your rights violated by your government or fellow man. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.